So we've got this lovely skeleton in the center of the model, and now it looks like it's time for us to start putting together the joints that will need to be mirrored. I'm going to start those out with the eyes because I want to introduce a new idea to you. This idea lives in the Deform menu, and it's called a cluster. A cluster is a group of vertices. And it's in the Deform menu because it is technically animatable, and you can bind two clusters because all they are is a group of vertices. Now, the reason people like clusters is not necessarily that they are animatable. The reason people like clusters is that they create snap points. So when I want to make a joint for my eyeball, I want to be sure that that joint is centered within the eyeball, and the cluster is a great way to do that. They're also really easy to make. I'm going to go to control vertex mode on my eyeball. Just going to grab all of these control vertices and then deform and cluster. Now the cluster generates an object. The object is called a cluster handle. That's going to live right over here in my outliner. And if I turn my eye layer off, you'll also see that I get a little letter C on my screen. That's great. If I select the letter C and I turn the eye layer on, you'll see that that will indeed move not the eyeball itself, but all of the vertices in the eyeball, which I'm sure is super fun, and that there are lots of times you can think of that you might want to use that. Especially if you were to, let's say, take just a few of your control vertices and make a cluster out of that. That cluster would move just these vertices, and you could always go back to it. So I'm sure that some of you are thinking about this as a modeler or as some other kind of artist. Clusters are super useful because they're a group of vertices, and for us as riggers, they're extra useful because now I have a snap point. So I can take my Create Joint tool, I can hold down the V key on my keyboard. V is snap 2 points. I'll just click right here, press enter, and this gives me my left eye joint. Okay, awesome. So let's just make that the child of this connection joint right here. And then I can mirror it just the same way I would mirror any other joint. All good. Close that. Now the cluster handle is also great. I'm sure that you know from other deformers that you've used that sometimes deleting a deformer can have some ramifications to your model. The cluster handle doesn't. It is a completely separate object. I've used it to create that snap point, and now that I've done that, I can delete it. Nothing bad happens to my eyes. So there, now I've made the eyes. So think a little bit about the cluster concept, and in my next video I will make joints for the ears and for all the little face tentacles. See ya then.